welcome back to Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, and we are here as always with another amazing guest. Brad Kearns is a New York Times bestselling author, former professional triathlete, and is ranked number 3 in the world for his age group in the high jump. What? Like, think about that sentence. That sentence is insane. In 2017, Brad, together with legend Mark Sisson, wrote the book The Keto Reset Diet, which quickly became a bestseller. And he has helped improve the lives of countless people through his book and his awesome podcast. His podcast is called Get Over Yourself. He's done it for 2 years now, I believe. He's also done the Primal Blueprint podcast. He's also a Guinness World Record setting professional athlete. And before we get to that, Brad, I'm normally a pretty positive person, but I've got a complaint. And just kind of something that annoys me, a little pet peeve. I really dislike slow golf.
Who doesn't? Oh my goodness, Casey.
I mean, those days when you go and there's people in front of you and they're kind of chatting and they're, playing really slow and taking 57 practice swings. I don't really like slow golf.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the sport of golf is so entrenched in our culture. It's so popular. There was a golf course building boom around the year 2000, and everything was great. And Tiger Woods was really carrying the torch for the amazing growth of the sport at the recreational level. It was coming into populations like in the inner cities that had never, touched a club before. And Tiger was a lot of credit for that. And, lately it's had, become stagnant. The population participation numbers are going down. And the big reasons are, the expense of these clubs that you're supposed to get a new set of clubs every year, the expense of playing, the greens fees, and of course the time required to go play a round of golf. So we in the speed golf community are so passionate about spreading a different message that this doesn't have to be like it looks on TV with this incredibly elaborate preparation to hit every single shot. And I think we watch the pros, we appreciate the broadcasts on TV, and then we go out and try to play the sport the same way they do and decide if it's 156 yards to the pin. There's a slight wind from left to right. I'm going to choose my 7. No, I'm going to choose my 6. No, my 7. And it's kind of ridiculous because the recreational player, statistically speaking, is not very good. And so really what you should do is get out there, take a deep breath, swing the club, and then go get it and hit another shot and not get into this overly analytical, extremely time-consuming mode that most of us play golf in. And like you say, waiting for the guys in front of you, it's just ridiculous. And it can spoil your fun when, you're just trying to have a nice walk in the forest and get done and go about your busy life. So listeners who aren't familiar, speed golf is completely different than the traditional model.
You said walk. And there's a quote that's mistakenly attributed to Mark Twain that says golf is a good walk spoiled. And I totally agree with that, but you don't exactly walk when you play golf.
Oh, right. Yeah. I don't even play traditional golf hardly ever, but I play a ton of golf and I've accumulated a ton of rounds, in recent years with my increasing passion for this sport called speed golf. And so we actually have traditional tournament competitions where they keep your score, you keep your scorecard and you shoot a certain score, but they also count your minutes on the course and they add your minutes to your strokes to get a total speed golf score. So for example, the best round I ever had on the professional circuit, I shot a 78 on a championship 18-hole course in 47 minutes. So my speed golf score was 125. And you go up and look at the scoreboard and, the winner's 119 and then there's 123 and then 137. And so the numbers are kind of unfamiliar to golfers, but, the preciousness of each stroke and each minute and kind of trying to sync those together to where, you can't very well take your time and, be jogging slowly and expect to be competitive on the professional circuit. But you also can't be running around like an idiot and hitting terrible shots and going into the trees to chase it down and then hit another bad shot. So it's a beautiful interplay between playing good golf, executing the shots well, but also hustling through the course. And we only take 5 or 6 clubs. So there's a lot of like in between creative shots that you have to figure out where you're choking down and, hitting it half as far as that club might go. And so it brings all these beautiful new challenges into the traditional sport, which is, a little stagnant in many ways. And for me, what's the most amazing revelation, and this is shared by many, many competitive speed golfers, is when you're out there and you're moving at a quick pace, again, not rushing or being hectic, but just moving through the course and coming to the ball, grabbing a club and swinging, you access this beautiful flow state that we talk about, this Zen-like focus where you're just in the groove. You're not in that overly analytical mindset that can mess you up so easily. And it turns out that most of the players play as good or better than when they're taking all day with 14 clubs and a caddy telling them the wind direction and the yardage. And that's what's an amazing revelation to me. I mean, I can shoot in the mid to high 70s in speed golf tournament. But if you get me out there for 5 hours and get me bored at times or, thinking too much about a shot, I'm not much better of a player. Of course, I'm going to play a little bit better, but it's amazing how, you can execute when you're kind of in that groove and not taking the extra time.
Wow. I would have never guessed that. I just want to say too, like before I do these shows, I like to do some research, but I purposely did not research speed golf hardly at all because I am genuinely very curious and I'm going to sit down with the listener and learn about this. It's so crazy. So near my house, there's a race they do every year on bikes and it's like the donut race or something. And so you do like a 5-mile circuit and then every circuit that you do, you stop and you get a time bonus for eating donuts. And so there's, the Homer Simpson approach where you want to eat a lot of donuts and then just survive the ride. There's a Lance Armstrong approach where it's like ride as fast as you can and don't eat as many donuts. You mentioned the time aspect and the skill aspect. Which one carries more weight based on that scoring system that you said?
That's one analogy you can draw as the donut bike ride. There's also the beer mile. I don't know if you've heard of that one where the great Olympic runner, Nick Symmonds, I love this guy. People should go watch him on YouTube. He does all these crazy stunt videos where he's doing athletic challenges. But I think he set the world record in the beer mile. Maybe it's been broken, but these guys are amazing. I mean, they're running like 4-minute mile pace, but every lap you have to chug a beer. And the judges make sure you're not spilling it on your shirt. And so, it gets to be pretty difficult on the digestive system to be, sprinting around the track and then throwing down beer. So that donut bike ride, I'm not sure what my strategy would be there. But in the case of speed golf, the emphasis we've really discovered now that you have to play good golf. And the winners of the world championships, we have a championship every year. This year's champ is Scott Dolly. He's a former mini tour professional, so a very, very good golfer, also in pretty darn good aerobic shape. But he's going out to these difficult courses and shooting par. And you can watch on YouTube, There's a video called Christopher Smith Bandon Dunes Speed Golf. He played the historic course Bandon Dunes, one of the greatest courses in the world, in 4 under par in 53 minutes. And there's a beautiful drone footage. You only need to take 3 minutes to watch the video. It's all in high speed. But here's a guy, playing a tough course and going 4 under while moving quickly through every shot with just a handful of clubs. So, the top speed golfers are pretty impressive. And when you think about the wasted time of hitting one bad shot and going in the sand trap, or, if you carelessly miss a short putt of 1 foot because you were rushing, I can run 350 yards in a minute. I can run an entire hole in 1 minute. So I better not miss that stupid little putt because all of a sudden I'm behind, I'm behind an entire hole because I'm not playing good golf. So you have to be in shape and you don't have to go break your neck out there running at Olympic speed. Actually, one of the best speed golfers in the world is a guy named Nick Willis, who is a bronze medalist in the Olympic Games in the 1500 meters. And so one of the fastest men of all time in the mile is out there playing decent golf and running, of course, way faster than anyone else in the tournament. But, he's not in the very top positions because he's not shooting par. He's shooting mid-80s or whatever. I mean, he's kind of busy running on the world track circuit, right? But he's a top competitor, but it's really all about the golf.
Wow, that's super interesting. We mentioned the Guinness World Record that you hold, and that was on 1 hole. It had to be over 500 yards, correct? So par 5?
Yeah, so this is interesting because I've described the competitive tournament speed golf where you go out there and you play 18 holes, right? Or we play a 2-day tournament and keep our minutes and our strokes. And then I was on YouTube one day just fooling around, looking at speed golf videos, which is one of the ways I distract myself. And I saw this guy in the United Kingdom, Steve Jeffs. He had the world record for the fastest single hole of golf ever played, an official Guinness World Record. And I was captivated by the guy's video. His family dogpiles him on the green when he broke the record. He's been trying so hard. And, so I became obsessed with going for an official attempt at this Guinness World Record. And they put you through all kinds of hoops. The application process takes 12 weeks, and you have to have 10 people present and assigned to responsibilities on the day of the record attempt to make it official. You need a filmographer, you need a photographer, you need a timer, you need a backup timer, you need an expert witness that knows golf and can attest. And so,
Wow.
I had this big pressure-filled experience where I'm practicing, and then I made this, official record attempt day. And people can go to YouTube. You don't have to take too much of your time out because I played the hole in 1 minute and 38 seconds, a par 5, and it was really like a miracle performance for me because, you have to run all out. You can't waste any time since you're only playing one hole and there's no score counting. It's just all about how fast you can play the hole. But again, you have to hit good shots or you have no chance at the record. And I had this, 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 5,000 chances where I hit 4 perfect shots and got a birdie using only one club, just a 3-wood. But it was just like, boom, nice drive, boom, second shot. I chipped with a 3-wood and I sank this putt with a 3-wood. And it was, I was pretty excited too. So it's a pretty fun video to see kind of this offshoot of the official sport of speed golf.
The video is absolutely amazing. And yes, you're right. You had 4 perfect shots. That chip shot with a 3-wood blows my mind. Blows my mind.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm a sprinter. I love doing that type of exercise along with my high jumping and my speed golf. And then, of course, I'm a speed golfer. And so when I first saw the video, I think this is relevant to everybody when you're talking about goal setting and peak performance. So I saw this video and I said, "Well, that's cool. I'm going to go out there tomorrow night and destroy this poor guy's record, and then I'll apply for official recognition and do the whole thing. But I can take this down easily." And I went out there and I did quite well on a par 5. I hit some good shots and I stopped my watch, and I was way slower than the guy. And so I went out the next night and I said, okay, this time game on. I'm going to put my spikes, my sprinting shoes on. And I went out there and ran as fast as I could, but that cost me, some accuracy with my shots. And again, I was way behind this beautiful record that this guy set. So I tracked him down on the internet. I said, dude, how did you do that record? That is unbelievable. Are you an Olympic sprinter? Like, I can't tell on the video. And he wrote me back. He was very gracious. He said, Brad, I practiced that hole 1,000 times. I played the hole over and over and over, and I knew exactly where to hit the ball. And good luck to you. I hope you can practice and get it all straight. And so that kicked off this journey where, I had to have a structured and focused approach to going after this record so that it really meant something to me. And it was really special and really challenging rather than something I could go, knock off in my sleep, like an arrogant goof off. And so it took me months and months of practice, especially practicing with the single club to, chip and putt with a 3-wood. And so that made the record day and the video more, celebratory and more satisfying because it was something that, I really did a step-by-step methodical approach for and worked hard and then put it all together under the extreme pressure of, imagine like organizing all these people to show up at the golf course. My sister-in-law and her husband, Sean, they drove 3 hours to become the official timer and one of the witnesses. And I'm like, man, I can't let them down if they did a 3-hour drive just to meet me at the golf course. So
Wow.
that all stuff is kind of fun and exciting. And, just to tie it into something of an interesting lesson, I'm out here trying to promote maintaining passion and competitive intensity throughout life. I mean, I'm an old-time triathlete. You read my bio, and that's all fine and dandy, but that was decades ago. So today, when I wake up in the morning, I want to have something that gets me charged up, just like I felt when I was a pro competing on the circuit and training for the big race and flying off to the championships in Australia or whatever, because, it's something that makes life really special. It keeps you motivated. It keeps you focused. It keeps you on edge. And of course, these goals and these challenges have to be lifestyle and age appropriate. I'm no longer fit for traveling around the world, training all day, trying to compete on the pro triathlon circuit, but I have something that can excite me in the same manner and get me going and, be an appropriate goal to promote health, longevity, not compromise my health like you do when you're an elite athlete. So that was kind of the whole message about this goofy speed golf stuff that I like to talk about.
That's so awesome. We did get a few questions about your shoes, and I think you answered that question. So you use track spikes.
Yeah, don't tell the golf course people.
we won't mention that.
And luckily, that's only when I was doing that single hole record, I used track spikes. But in speed golf, it's important to know, especially when you watch these videos of people racing around the course, that we take excellent care of the course. We clean up our ball marks, we rake the sand traps, or we have attendants do it if you have enough volunteers. But this is not a crazy hockey puck challenge where you're leaving the course in shambles. You're playing regular golf, you're respecting all the rules of golf, and you're just moving quickly through the course rather than dilly-dallying. And here's the funny thing, Casey, to go back to your very first comment. The rules in speed golf is if you catch up to the player in front of you, because you see we tee off at a stagger of like 5 minutes apart, because you don't want to play at the same time. You're going to hit somebody in the head if you get a little ahead of them or behind them. If you catch up to the player in front of you, you are allowed to yell and then hit right into them while they're putting or doing whatever, because that means that you made up a 5-minute stagger, you're playing faster, and they are obligated to step aside and let you pass through and then resume their round. So it's the exact opposite of the most frustrating part of golf, where you're waiting for these clowns in front of you while they're, paying off bets on the green or whatever.
Wow, that I did not know any of that. That's super interesting. One of my favorite Olympic sports to watch is the biathlon and Winter Olympics. And
yeah.
And that's also a sport that combines two things: a very high cardio output, cross-country skiing, extremely difficult, with shooting a gun. And pretty much in every race that I ever watch, you see that person who is starting to spin kind of downhill. You can see they're getting tired, so they start missing shots, and now they're taking time penalties, which means they need to ski even further, which means they're even more tired. Has that ever happened to you where you got a little too tired as you were out there and it was affecting your golf?
Oh my gosh, man. You now the goosebumps are coming on my arm because it was such a traumatic emotional experience last year in the World Championships in Houston. For some reason, we had to tee off in the afternoon, which is really rare. Usually we're the first people off in the morning, the weather's fine, and we go and run breezily through the course. But this was a 93-degree day with high humidity in Houston.
Oh, no.
And I am not prepared for that, being up here in Lake Tahoe and having, mountain weather. And I got to the back nine and my legs just would not go move anymore. And I started to get numb in the face and the extremities, like you get when you're overheated and dehydrated. And I barely made it to the clubhouse on that round. And the back nine was just a death march where I started going slower and slower because I wasn't adapted to the heat. But here's the funny thing. I mean, I was seeing dizzy. I was, having the elevated heart rate and all those signs that your body's in distress. But when I got to the ball, I'd swing and I hit great shots and I had a good score. It was just I was physically falling apart. But because I think there was a complete lack of tension or lack of that, that anxious mindset that any golfer can relate to, or anyone in any sport where precision and accuracy are required. It was just like, I just wanted to get to the clubhouse and get some water, dunk into the ice bath. And it was amazing how I was still able to execute good shots when I was seeing double and, seeing oases out there and things like that.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, you are very passionate and excited, and it's so infectious. I love it. That, it is really funny to watch that video and see you just flying down the hole. But you're right, like it is such a combination of physical fitness and skill. It's really impressive. I've never seen anything like it. Beth, and my wife, when I showed her the video yesterday, she just looked at it and she said, "You couldn't combine two worse things." I'm like, well, he does it well. So anyway, it's very, very impressive. We also mentioned high jumping, something you're into. How did that come about?
Yeah, it's funny. Here I am, this old time endurance athlete. And, I was consumed by the endurance sports since I was a youth and going into high school, that was the sport I chose to focus on. And it helped that I was a tiny little guy coming into this huge public high school in Los Angeles with championship teams in football and basketball. And I dreamed of being a star in all the big sports. And then they send guys like me who are 5'5" and 115 pounds over to the running track to run around in circles. So, I had a long journey in the endurance sports. I was naturally adapted to it. I did well. I was National Junior Olympic finalist and ranked when I was 16 years old in the 1500 meters. I ran in Division I for a little bit and then got hurt and injured and sick so much that I transitioned over to triathlon and had a nice 9-year career on the pro circuit. But the thing that I really enjoyed was some of these other sports were really fun for me. I like playing pickup basketball, and I loved high jumping when I was in high school, and I'd go and practice with the jumpers after I finished running circles around the track and, being ready to pass out or puke at the finish line. That stuff wasn't as fun or challenging as these technical things. So I've preserved that passion for high jump throughout my adult life, and went at it when I was coaching the kids in middle school, and it started to become more and more of a priority when I transitioned away from that extreme endurance journey that I was on for so long. And I feel like building this these attributes of explosiveness and muscle strength and balance and flexibility and mobility and things that are required to be a good sprinter, high jumper. And of course, speed golf is doing that too when I'm going for the single hole record. These things I think are more aligned with hormonal health, longevity, general health, injury prevention, resiliency against, day-to-day life and the things that we have to do physically, much more than the extreme endurance performer that's going for those incremental improvements when you're on the pro circuit and trying to shave another 30 seconds off your time. Basically, I was good for nothing for that 10-year period of my life. I was good for nothing but swimming, biking, and running straight ahead at high speed and training for hours and hours and every day. And then, sleeping and eating otherwise. And so now I had to broaden my perspective about fitness to where, hey, that pull-up bar that's hanging in your closet that you never touch, it's kind of important to be able to, hoist your body up in the air and be able to have a basic fitness competency in all these other checkpoints rather than just having a big endurance machine that you can wind up and go all day. So it's been a great transition, something I've talked about in all of our books and on my podcast. I like to emphasize that point that, we have to preserve that explosiveness, that muscle strength, that muscle mass, and that's how we age gracefully rather than go into decline. And the people who are in that extreme endurance mode, of course, their cardiovascular fitness is up there at a high level, but we now know very disturbingly that an extreme approach to endurance exercise can be very bad for the body, can cause hormone dysregulation, immune suppression, and even cardiac problems with this increased incidence of atrial fibrillation in long-term, high-performing endurance athletes who basically blow their hearts out because they exercise them too much with insufficient rest and recovery.
It's just so counterintuitive, though. If you were to ask most people who are the healthiest people, you would look at an endurance athlete and say it's people who run marathons or do triathlons or do Ironman. It's so counterintuitive, that idea.
Yeah, they're fit, right? You can take a picture of fitness and they're fit for a certain activity. But again, now we have like these, I just watched the CrossFit Games final and watching these guys perform in all these different, disciplines of being able to do 200 pull-ups and then go run a 6-minute mile. And it's just mind blowing, but, broadening that concept of what fitness really is. And again, hoping to align it with your health and your longevity, I feel like that is a much more esteemed goal to me than going a few minutes faster on your next marathon. And personally speaking, and I know this is the case for many, many people, my journey as a triathlete greatly compromised my health for that decade long that I was pushing my body too hard and going to those extreme levels. And I think that's the same for any professional athlete. If you want to play in the NFL, you're not really worried about your health and whether your knee function is going to be compromised 30 years down the line. You're just trying to get to the end zone.
Yeah,
and so that's
right.
kind of the trade-off that we all face when we're that any elite athlete faces. But luckily that period of my life is over and done with. And now I'm like, hey, how can I get pumped up for competition, do stuff that, still push me to the limit of my abilities, but not overdo it and not be in those chronic patterns, which can become so unhealthy. So, for a high jump practice session, I'm going over to the running track. I warm up nicely. I do my drills. They're pretty challenging. You can see them on YouTube. I have Brad Kearns running technique drills and things like that, where I'm building that flexibility, that form, and then I'll go and challenge myself with some very short duration sprints and jumping efforts. And the whole thing's over with in 30 to 40 minutes. And my gosh, I'm getting these great flood of adaptive hormones into my bloodstream, testosterone, human growth hormone. I'm not overstimulating the stress hormones, the chronic overproduction of stress hormones that comes when you do these workouts that are too prolonged and too exhausting. I don't feel like hell when I finish the workout. I feel pumped up and energized, and I go home and carry on with my busy day. It's a huge difference from going on those 4-hour bike rides back in the day in a really intense pack, and you come home and you collapse on the ground and then, get up and stuff your face for the next 6 hours with sugar and other things that you're compelled to consume because you're so depleted.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think that's a great definition of fitness, to be able to be really diverse and do so many different things. And I think it's such a cool tribute to you personally and how you live that you are able to do those things. I think it's really great. I want to take...
It's raising the bar, man.
It's awesome.
The high jump is the great metaphor for anti-aging, because I'm trying to raise the bar in life every year. And if I can clear that bar, I contend that that's, a method of delaying the aging process and showing that I'm, still competent.
I love that. I think that's great. Let's take a quick break, and then I want to talk about meeting Mark Sisson on the triathlon circuit and your combined career there. We'll take a little break. So you are racing as a triathlete, and you come across Mark Sisson probably far before he was an influence in the nutrition, primal aspect of health. Tell me what it was like to meet him and the journey that you guys kind of went on together.
Yeah, that's funny. Most listeners are familiar with Mark Sisson as being the forefather of the ancestral health movement, and one of the first guys talking about, changing the diet to honor the hunter-gatherer example, the Paleolithic example. And so we've had a great run in recent years, starting in 2008, writing books, putting on events, and promoting the primal blueprint way of life, the primal paleo, the ancestral health scene. And so our relationship dates back, decades prior. And we were both, deeply immersed into the endurance scene. Mark's a little older than me, so he already had finished his career as a national caliber marathon runner. He got fourth in the Hawaii Ironman World Championship. So, everybody in the triathlon scene knew this guy. He was a prominent coach and personal trainer in LA at the time. So, our relationship started when I was competing on the pro circuit early in my career, and he was my coach for most of my time competing as a pro triathlete. And he had very innovative ideas even back then. He was the first guy to recognize that maybe this pounding our brains out every single day was maybe not the best way to improve. And so he encouraged me to, do a better job balancing stress and rest, just push myself once in a while with what he called breakthrough workouts. So, I'd go out there once in a while and have these epic bike rides of 140 miles in the mountains. And then I'd take it 2 or 3 days and take it easy and watch videos and, jog over to the swimming pool and swim a few laps and go home. And that's when my career really took off, was when I was able to escape this kind of traditional approach where the endurance athlete is obsessed with accomplishing something every single day and getting their weekly mileage higher and higher. And that's the perceived way to improve on the race course. So, it was a great relationship. I credited him with kind of helping me break through to where, for a few years there, I was ranked 8th in the world, then I was ranked 7th, and then probably 12th. And then, I started winning these races that I was usually coming in 3rd or 4th, and I was able to reach a height of 2-time national champion and rank 3rd in the world way back in 91. I won 7 races in a row, and I was really, reaching the best of my potential in that sport with kind of an innovative approach where I wasn't, pounding my body maybe as much as many of my peers.
Wow. When did you start to really change your diet, you personally?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think probably everybody would love to weigh in who's been in this scene and watch it evolve so quickly. But back in the time when I was competing, we're talking about the 80s, the 90s. The main goal was to follow this, what we thought was a nutritious grain-based diet, and so you're going for the brown rice instead of the white rice, and you're eating a ton of fruits and vegetables and having a green smoothie and all these things that, we thought were the pinnacle of healthy eating. And only when the ancestral health movement came about, I did, this extreme departure from my lifelong what I thought was super healthy dietary habits. Oh, I forgot to mention the frozen yogurt with all the toppings and, all these things that were, hey, it's A-okay because it's really low fat. And so, of course it's healthy.
Bowls and bowls and bowls of cereal with skim milk, 2 in the morning.
Right. Yeah. The good cereal though, Casey, not the sugary stuff, but I'm eating the whole grain cereal. So it's so much better.
Heart healthy Fruit Loops.
Yeah. So, I got together with Mark in 2008 to work on the Primal Blueprint book and the other things that we started at that time. And he goes, okay, here's the deal with this ancestral eating style. No grains. Grains are not consumed because they are a recent food that was made with the advent of civilization, right? We started cultivating wheat in the Middle East and rice in Asia and corn in the Americas. And that's what allowed us to become civilized humans rather than hunter-gatherers. However, this transition into the modern civilized diet has come at great expense to human health, and we've become addicted to carbohydrates. So that's basically the message if any listeners unfamiliar. And so by ditching grains, all of a sudden, you go in your pantry cupboard or look at your meal choices, and there's this giant void where you're no longer having mountains and piles of cereal every morning and pasta in the evening. And so that was, a big switch for me. It was a cold turkey switch over to this experiment with hunter-gatherer diet where you're eating, and this is the entire list if people are taking notes. Our ancestors evolved on meat, fish, fowl, eggs, vegetables, fruits, nuts, and seeds. And that's pretty much the original human diet that has made us who we are today as Homo sapiens, the great apex predator of the earth and the most highly evolved creature. And we got this way by eating the nutrient-dense foods that especially animals provide. So hunting the big game or, evolving and migrating the globe along the shoreline where we had access to these beautiful omega-3 rich fish and marine life. So that's kind of a little comment on the current popularity of this plant-based eating where people are excluding animal foods for whatever reasons. And, morality being one that we have to respect, but we must acknowledge that we're eliminating the most nutritious foods on the planet Earth that have fueled human evolution for 2.5 million years. So there's a strong rationale to eat in this ancestral pattern and to completely reject as much as possible these nutrient-deficient grain foods, which are basically just an empty source of calories that can cause a lot of problems when we overdo it with the modern introduction of all the processed foods and the sugars and the sweetened beverages. So that's the long answer to how I got going on this dietary change and working together with Mark to spread this word that at first it was really interesting. It was not a well-received message. when we were shopping our first book around, which turned out to be a mega bestseller and one of the best-selling books ever in the primal paleo space, we got turned down by, over a dozen New York City publishers because they're like, what is this stuff? This guy's not even a doctor. It's never going to fly. And of course, now if you go on Amazon and type in the word keto or paleo, you're going to get hundreds of book titles with everyone embracing this nicely as a very reasonable and scientifically validated way to eat.
Yeah. Interesting. So I see often with my clients a pretty standard transition where they're eating standard American and they feel terrible and they're overweight and they have, whatever chronic condition. So they switch and maybe they start by going to paleo or primal, but then oftentimes they take a further step in progression where they then go onto a ketogenic diet. So what was that like for you? And when did you decide that you needed to write the Keto Reset Diet?
Well, that's very well described how you present it. That first thing you got to do is ditch these ridiculous nutrient deficient disease promoting processed foods. And I call them the big three, which would be grains, sugars, and refined industrial seed oils. And we now are starting to put the emphasis on the refined industrial seed oils as the biggest killer and the single most offensive thing that we put into the human body. And unfortunately, they're extremely prevalent in the modern diet. Almost anything you eat at a restaurant or takeout or in a box or package is going to have these vegetable oils or these seed oils included in there. And they're going to contribute a lot of a high percentage of your daily calories. So if that's
awful.
The one takeaway a listener can take away from this show, besides how to play speed golf and speed up and don't keep people waiting out there, the other one would be to have an absolute zero tolerance policy for anything that contains these refined industrial seed oils. And then the grains and the sugars, of course, are also highly offensive, but the seed oils are really the thing that are destroying our metabolic function. They're inhibiting our ability to burn body fat. They're promoting insulin resistance because they're just toxic agents that have been highly processed and are highly oxidative in the human body. They create a lot of free radicals or oxidative stress and interfere with healthy fat burning. And if you can't burn your own body fat, you're not going to be able to adhere to any type of diet. And especially if you try to do something crazy like low carb or keto or, get rid of all grains, but your metabolic function is inhibited by these seed oils, you're going to be starving, cranky, and you're going to go right back into the high carbohydrate patterns that you've been following for decades. So that's the big one, is to just clean up the diet. And I just like to emphasize these points because as we get further and further into the scene, the ancestral health scene and the healthy diet and eating, now there's controversy. People are confused. People don't have all day to read the research and listen to, dozens of experts like I do, because this is my world and your world. And it's really disturbing to me to see my buddies from high school talking about trying to be healthy and keep it together. And they're saying, what about this documentary where all these great athletes are eating only plants? And what do you think about that? And it's kind of heartbreaking to see all the propaganda, all the confusion floated out there to busy people who are well-meaning. And so if we can take these baby steps in the correct direction, and the first one being, hey, just get rid of all that stuff that's processed and packaged, and you're going to look a lot better than you were before. And that's why people are touting, an extreme vegan experience and they feel so fantastic. It's because they got off of the fast food train is the main reason, not the amazing attributes of, the foods they're choosing. So that's the part I like to emphasize first. And then, as we further explore further refinements and looking for further peak performance, oh my gosh, there's so many cool opportunities to explore and engage and experiment with yourself. Keto is one of them that's become extremely popular. These days, the carnivore movement is very interesting to me, and I'm, very supportive of that message that's conveyed by the leaders and the idea that we know that the most nutritious foods on the planet are from the animal foods, especially the superfoods like the oily cold water fish, the organ meats like liver, all that kind of stuff. And if you're, eating more and more of those, pastured eggs, grass-fed steak, you're getting this massive dose of beautiful micronutrients and, feeling completely satisfied because you're eating these nutritious meals as opposed to a big bowl of pasta or cereal or things that are, mostly filling the void with empty calories. And so, that's kind of thing where it's more, I guess, embraceable to the average person to go and just, look at eating good foods, maybe not eating so often and getting away from the constant grazing and snacking. In fact, our next book that Mark and I are releasing in early 2021 is called 2 Meals a Day. And it's simply an answer to all this controversy and trying to transcend all that controversy and all these nuances and tell people, hey, just quit eating so frickin' frequently and get better at burning your own body fat. And when it is time to eat stuff that you like, make good choices, obviously, get away from the processed stuff, but let's not overcomplicate this thing.
Yeah, I just could not agree more with any of that. That is so well said, very well explained. You and I both independently started a carnivore diet in the same month. Actually, it was April of 2019, if I have your story straight. And I didn't ever stop the experiment because it was just so easy. I can eat a meal or maybe 2 at 5 if I want. I'm not that hungry. I'm burning fat. I can go enjoy my day. I can go be busy. I can do some writing. I can have you on a podcast. Like it's so easy. It's such a better way to live.
Yeah, it's really no wonder we're so enthusiastic here, because when you get off that carbohydrate dependency train, it's truly a health awakening like you maybe have never experienced in years or decades, for sure.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah. I used to tell people like I like to cook, and I really do. I like to cook, but I don't like to spend my whole day cooking. I like to meal prep, but I don't want to spend all Saturday meal prepping. I want to go paddleboard. I want to go ride my bike. I want to play ice hockey. I want to do the things that I truly love, and eating in this certain way enables that. And I think it's amazing. It's great. I wish more people could at least experience what that feels like.
Right, to not be dependent on food is nice, freedom. Yeah.
You can eat if you want, like that's fine, but you have the option where you don't have to be eating and snacking all the time. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to even understand or to realize what you just said until you're there. Like people simply can't even conceive of that until they get to that point where they're so good at burning body fat that, oh my gosh, I forgot to eat, and it's 3:45 p.m. and that's kind of when the great breakthroughs occur, is when you're in that state of metabolic flexibility, which means you have the ability to burn a variety of fuels, including a nice meal, but also including just stored body fat and making ketones when you need to fuel the brain in the absence of dietary carbohydrates and all that fun stuff.
That's right. Yeah. And then with an endurance athlete, you prevent bonking, because as an athlete, you're carrying around thousands and thousands of calories of fat energy on your body that's doing nothing but weighing you down. Why would you not run the machine on that fuel source?
Instead of the precious energy gel that fell out of your pocket and you didn't notice, and now you're in big trouble.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, it's such a better way to live. I want to go back to your book. You wrote your book in a very interesting style. And I talk about this sometimes, where there's some materials that I consume and I like them and they're really profound, or they go really deep into the science. And I like that and I appreciate it, but it's not something that I can easily share along with other people. And you guys obviously did so much research and knew your stuff so well, but you presented the information in that book in a way that it was so easy to understand. I actually used it almost like a textbook for people that I would take through the process of getting into ketosis so that they could learn how to burn their own stored body fat and how to get really good at it. And there's 2 really key points that I want to bring up in your book. And the first one that I really, really, really like is the midterm exam. Can you tell the listener about what the midterm exam is?
Thank you for the compliment. I appreciate it, because I feel like, as I mentioned before with my high school buddies or the average person out there, that's what I feel like my best contribution to the planet is. The highest expression of my talents is to take a lot of this research, a lot of this information that people spend their lives, dedicating to, and then bring it to the mass audience in a form that's easy to consume and not confuse or frustrate. And so that's kind of the writing style I'm going for.
Nailed it.
And I think it's,
dude.
yeah,
Nailed it.
There's plenty of science. You can go on the internet and read the research, but how does that affect me on a day-to-day basis? I'm always looking for that practical example. So this midterm exam that you describe is the necessary intermediate point in that journey toward a full-on ketogenic diet experiment. And so if you're not familiar, listeners, when we're asking you to go keto, it means to greatly restrict dietary carbohydrates to the extent that your liver is compelled or triggered to produce these precious energy source called ketone bodies or ketones. And those are the single best fuel for your brain to replace the more dirty burning and more tenuous fuel source of glucose. But your liver is not going to make ketones if you have an appreciable amount of carbs in the diet, if you're snacking frequently. It's a very fragile state that's sort of a survival mechanism that we evolved when we didn't have constant access to food. And so it's a wonderful feeling to be making these ketones and burning them and not having to rely upon regular meals. But if you try to get there too quickly, and if you skip these intermediate steps, or you're not properly adapted and ready to switch fuel sources from what you've been burning your entire life, it's going to be a struggle. And when we respond to such struggles with a fight or flight stimulation. And so this is the classic example of the crash diet, where someone wants to lose weight. They're going on a TV show and they're getting a bonus of $50,000 to see if they can lose this much weight in 6 weeks. And this is just one big shower of stress hormones every single day for weeks and weeks on end, as you starve your body from its usual readily available supply of glucose in the form of dietary carbohydrate. And so we don't want to have this chronic stress hormone production, because that will invariably down the road somewhere lead to a breakdown, burnout, illness, injury in the case of an athlete, or just total burnout and exhaustion for the crash dieter who's not ready and not yet adapted to burn body fat or make ketones, but all of a sudden, getting rid of all the carbs in their diet. And I think I'm kind of disturbed as I sit back and watch the extreme popularity and the craze of the ketogenic diet scene. I mean, it's great for our book sales have gone well because keto gets more and more popular. But then you go on the internet and you see, hey, it's the 7-day keto blast. Join me and we'll do this whole thing, and then we'll get our bikini ready for the summer. And that's really not going to fly in real life when someone's been adapted to burning dietary carbs as their main energy source for years and decades. And so the midterm exam is to just kind of see, how do you feel when you skip a meal? How long can you last if you skip breakfast? Can you make it till 12 noon? Feeling good, not forcing yourself in the name of passing a test, but feeling productive, being able to conduct a workout, everything feels fine, and then you sit down to a meal. That's a sign that you have a good amount of metabolic flexibility. You've built up some level of fat adaptation. That means the ability to burn fat successfully. And that's when you can take these further steps and try to refine and go for more benefits, especially fat reduction. I think we should mention that quickly, that the attempt to drop excess body fat through caloric restriction or more exercise has now been strongly scientifically proven to be ineffective. A great recent book that really tells this compellingly and has a lot of research backed is Dr. Jason Fung's The Obesity Code. And it's like, here's the research. If you cut calories and exercise more, guess what's going to happen? You're going to slow down your metabolism. You're going to be less active in a day-to-day, throughout the day. You're going to feel lazier, and you're not going to be able to last because your body's going to be compelled to consume more calories when you starve yourself for 6 weeks. And so what is the secret to dropping excess body fat? It's getting better at burning your own body fat, reducing the insulin production in your diet. And all these things take a little bit of time to adjust to where you can be a true fat burner rather than someone in a stress response mode from an extreme diet that you weren't prepared for.
Yep. That is so well said and well explained. And I can assure you that after years and years of hooking people up to metabolic analyzers, I saw that countless times. And when you cut your calories, you will lose weight. but that will be a combination of fat and muscle and bone density and all kinds of stuff that you don't want to lose, and you will crush your metabolic rate. If you teach yourself how to burn stored body fat, your metabolism will increase. You will burn more of it because the body finds it. There's so many calories there, and you preserve lean mass. We saw it all the time. It's really amazing. And the midterm exam was just, it's such a cool way for people to connect with how they're supposed to be feeling all the time and to make sure that they are on track. One other feature in your book that I really love is you don't necessarily say that this is the diet you're going to be on for the rest of your life. In fact, there's a section in the book towards the end that says, okay, here are some options of different things that you can try, and know that you can use any of these at any time. These are just tools that you can use, and you can cycle on and off. You can do this seasonally. You could stay on this for the rest of your life. That would be totally fine, but it gives people options. Can you tell me why you included that in the book?
Yeah, thanks for noticing that, Casey. I think that's why Mark is really one of the most appreciated and popular voices in the ancestral health scene, is because he has a reasonable, non-extreme, everyday person approach where he's trying to be sensitive to real people trying to enjoy their lives. And so, adhering to a regimented physical training program, a regimented diet, these might be best described as seasons in life where you don't have to, be that focused and that intense about it every single day. And, we like to enjoy life just like the reader does. And so, you gotta allow for reality here. But my strong theme that I like to promote is that if you are going to enjoy your life, then make really, really good choices, and celebrate in the proper manner. Where there's one thing to go by the gas station and buy a candy bar because you're hankering for a candy bar, versus if you visit grandma and she made some fresh baked cookies coming out of the oven, and grandpa's in the garage cranking the hand crank to make some homemade ice cream. Oh my gosh, sit down and celebrate those two treats after dinner like there's no tomorrow. But that's a huge difference from this habitual consumption of highly processed, highly addictive, appetite stimulating foods that most people are kind of on this treadmill where they can't get off it because it's so habitual. So if you're going to be mindful about your enjoyment of life, your celebratory meals, oh my gosh, that's certainly not going to harm you in any way. And there's a mental health component to your dietary strategy as well. So we want people to be absolutely enjoying every single meal that they eat. Mindful when there's time to celebrate, making really good choices and choosing the very, very best stuff that's homemade and delicious. And, then a few bites go a long way, and you don't have to have 3 pieces of cheesecake and feel guilty the next morning. You can have one single fantastic homemade cheesecake that, my son likes to make homemade cheesecakes, and he spends hours on them with the special tray that he ordered on the internet to make a cheesecake. And like, oh my gosh, of course I'm going to indulge in that thing, even though it's listed as one of the most lipogenic treats because it's got a lot of fat and a lot of carbs. So what, man? I'm here to enjoy life too. So we want people to, at the same time, get away from these rationalizations and these kind of defense mechanisms where they're going to, repeat what I just said 4 nights a week when they're reaching for the Ben and Jerry's ice cream, which happens to have industrial seed oils in some of the flavors. I could not believe it when I saw that, because they look so healthy and natural and hippie trippy from Vermont. So, looking for the most appropriate treats and really enjoying them on occasion and not making it a habit.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. I couldn't have said that better myself. When you look back on that book in particular, and I know you've written others, but when you look on that book, look back, is there anything that you would go back and change?
Oh man, it's such it feels like such a race to me, because we started writing books and doing retreats and putting out video courses in 2008, and we're fighting this massive battle against conventional wisdom, or we now like to call it conventional stupidity, and the great marketing machines of the planet, the giant corporations that are still doing advertising and billboards and forcing this poisonous food into modern culture, and even the pillars of knowledge and information, like the universities and the United States government, and people that are still spewing information that is super harmful to humans. And so, this battle of taking the progressive health or the ancestral health movement, challenging the traditional Western medical approach of dispensing prescription medications rather than asking you to change your lifestyle. That's the thing where, we're just coming out swinging every single day. I'm putting out a lot of content myself. I'm cranking out podcasts. I'm cranking out books, and I don't have too much time to look in the rearview mirror, because we're just trying to always advance the conversation. And in doing so, that means that yes, there are a lot of refinements that have taken place over the years, and we're really proud, or I'll say that both Mark and I are priding ourselves of being open-minded and willing to think critically and be willing to change our positions. And the best example that I can give for myself is this carnivore diet message that started to become really popular in 2019. Now, I was first exposed to it in 2017, and I was sitting down with the great Danny Vega. You may be familiar with him. He's a big trainer and coach. He's got a great podcast. The Fat Fueled Family is his podcast. You can see this guy on Instagram, just a picture of athletic excellence. He was a former college football player, really smart guy, really enthusiastic. And he sat down and looked me in the eye, one-to-one conversation in 2017. He says, dude, I've been doing this cow diet. I don't know what he called it. It's like, all I do is eat stuff that came from a cow. So I'm eating steaks and hamburgers, and my blood work has improved. I've gotten stronger. I've lost body fat. I feel fantastic, amazing. And I'm like, oh, really? All right. So what? I completely dismissed it as a crazy anomaly thing, rather than even ask follow-up questions. But it was floating around in my mind. And then here we are 2 years later with guys like Dr. Sean Baker, Dr. Paul Saladino are referencing extensive science that this plant-based diet, or this huge emphasis on plants, might not be too healthy for certain people, especially if they're sensitive to plant toxins or antigens. They call them anti-nutrients that are contained in a lot of these plants, where, we're familiar with the peanut allergy or the milk allergy, or things that, you have to cook this thing or it's poisonous. You have to soak, sprout, ferment, and do all these things to plants to make them edible. And some people, especially if they have leaky gut condition, it can be hard to digest these plants, and they can cause or exacerbate autoimmune and inflammatory conditions in the body. And if you go to meatrx.com, that's Sean Baker's operation, you'll see these impassioned success stories from people that eliminated all plants for an experimental period of however long, and all these things cleared up magically in a short time, that they've been dealing with prescription medication and doctor intervention for years and years, and suffering accordingly. So you can't ignore this rationale that some people can highly benefit from a restrictive diet, and then furthermore, trying to drop excess body fat, which seems to be the number one health goal of modern times, and hundreds of millions, billions of people across the world dealing with it. And I think a highly effective strategy is to go on one of these exclusionary diets where you don't have that many choices. You're highly satisfied when you're eating carnivore style meals of giant omelets and steaks and sardines and salmon and all these wonderful things, where you're not wanting for more calories or more meals, and you're quickly dropping excess body fat because your carb intake is down, meaning that your activation of stored body fat is up, and very quickly you can achieve these goals that you've been struggling with for years and decades. So that's an example of being able to kind of shift my perspective into this idea that emphasizing the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet, the nose-to-tail animal food consumption, is, there's a really strong rationale for it. And I have drifted in that direction inextricably. So, I no longer go looking for big piles of produce to eat every single day in the name of health. I just don't do it anymore, because I realize that it's not as important as, upping my liver game and taking my supplements if I'm not cooking liver every single day. So that's my plug for my MOFO supplement that you can see more on my website. But, you can take animal organs in supplement form. And this is a huge part of the ancestral diet that's completely disregarded today, even by healthy eaters. We're mostly eating muscle meats only and not touching the organs, which have vastly superior nutritional profile to the regular muscle meats, as well as any food in the plant kingdom.
Yeah, it's just so well said. I had Sean Baker on the show. We just released the episode today, and I had to tell him that to this day I have not finished his episode on Rogan. I turned it off in 2017. I thought it was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard, that you could just eat meat and be fine. And I turned it off. And to this day, I've not gone back and finished the episode, even though I'm one of his Meat RX coaches. So kind of funny, full circle there.
Well, that's cool that you admit it, and I admit the same. And if nothing else, listening and hearing people out who are well informed and thoughtful, it's an exercise in critical thinking and remaining open-minded. And I have an old friend named Rip Esselstyn. He's a former professional triathlete. We were cohorts on the tri-circuit, and now he's one of the leaders of the plant-based dietary movement with his father, Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn of Cleveland Clinic, famous for reversing heart disease through a plant-based diet. And Rip is a super, super healthy, incredibly fit, positive, enthusiastic guy, and he wants you to eat just plants. And so that's a little bit different than Brad Kearns here talking about eating more liver and getting away from the high plant meals. But we had an hour plus conversation on my podcast where we discovered there's a tremendous amount of common ground. We don't want you eating the junk food from the gas station. We agree on this. We agree on that. He doesn't want you to consume too much protein. Of course, everyone agrees with that. And we go on down the line. And so we can make personal decisions, but they have to be informed, and we have to be open-minded rather than rigid, because that's where you're going to get caught up by your blind spots, and it's just not a good deal. So I'm forever, this whole thing started when you asked me, what would you change about your book? And there's probably all kinds of stuff, because I'm trying to, continue to remain open-minded and refine my position and then advance the conversation accordingly.
I love that. Well, that is a perfect segue to our final questions, the gauntlet of questions.
Bring it on,
get ready.
Baby.
Hope you did your stretches this morning.
Oh, yeah.
First question is, what is one thing that you learned or changed your mind about this week?
Oh, well, I'm deep into this project about the subject of testosterone and male hormone optimization, especially as we age. I'm 55 years old now, and everything changes, with each passing decade, from referencing back to when I was 25 and beating my body up with all those triathlon workouts. And so I've learned a lot of interesting insights about testosterone accordingly. So you're asking about this week. And one thing that came up was, surprisingly to me, that libido and testosterone are not officially directly correlated. But we always do associate those two together. But you can have, for example, high testosterone and low libido. For example, John Gray talks about this, one of my favorite podcast guests.
Awesome.
He's the author of Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus.
Awesome.
And if you have a dysfunctional relationship where, you have a bitchy girlfriend, and that's part of, I'm saying that jokingly, because not only maybe is the girlfriend not on her best behavior, but how do you get a bitchy girlfriend? Probably by being a jerk to your bitchy girlfriend. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So if you have a dysfunctional relationship, you can have low libido accordingly, even if you're a healthy, high testosterone person. And the other way around is also possible. So they're correlated in some way. High testosterone is predictive of your ability to have a healthy libido. But that was a neat thing that I learned this week that kind of restructures my thinking on that complex topic. And in fact, Dr. Kate Shanahan, I learned this from her too, that arousal and sexual performance is actually a parasympathetic function. So it requires being in that relaxed, calm, peaceful state rather than that amped up high stress state. And so there's all kinds of things that get in the way of the healthy balance between sympathetic, we call that fight or flight, and parasympathetic, rest, relax. They call it rest and digest as a nickname. And so to be the best you can be as a partner in the bedroom, you got to have a chill, healthy, stress balanced lifestyle.
That's great. That was a really good answer. I love it. Question number 2 is, what is one thing you wished you had done better this week?
Oh, mercy. It's the same one, the same drum I keep banging. I've had a lot of podcast content about this, and I'm totally honest with my audience, even as I talk about it and admonish people to, discipline against all the forms of digital distraction that hyperconnectivity brings today. And I'm still trying to do better every single day, man. It's so easy to get distracted, especially when you have Sacha Baron Cohen rising back to the forefront of culture with his new movie. But now I'm looking on YouTube and finding that he's created all these other different characters. I just found his billionaire playboy Gio Monaldo, and he's interviewing O.J. Simpson, trying to get him to confess to the murder. And it's just classic, beautiful content from an amazing actor. And so, yeah, he sends me off track from if I'm trying to work on my book manuscript so easily. So I'm always trying to discipline against digital distraction. It's a bit difficult challenge.
It is. Wow, that's hilarious. I'll have to look that up. That sounds like a good way to be distracted. Final question. What is one thing you are very proud of in this last week?
Oh, man. One thing comes to mind here, and it came from my podcast guest, Mark Manson, who's that #1 best-selling author of The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, Cultural Sensation, sold like 12 million copies around the world.
Great book.
He wrote a follow-up book called Everything is Fucked, a book about hope. I hope we can, say his book titles on your show or they'll get beeped out. But anyway, people have probably heard of Mark Manson, and he has some amazing insights. I think he's one of our great modern philosophers. But one thing that triggered with your question is that he says that self-worth and pride and self-esteem, they're related things. Self-worth is an illusion. And that chasing your pride and your reputation and your self-esteem in pursuing that is a source of constant pain and suffering. Instead, it's better to view your life as a series of decisions and actions. And that's it. Not attaching your self-esteem to the outcome of what you're doing. And so therefore, the true secret or the true path to happiness comes not from boosting your self-esteem, which is so fragile and tenuous, but rather developing the self-discipline to make good decisions and take good actions. And I love that thing. It stuck with me. I try to share that with my kids and as much as possible. They're adults now, they're over 18, but when you're just trying to make your way in life and everyone's measuring and judging everything you do, and therefore you're attaching your self-esteem to that. I mean, that's truly why I named my podcast. It's called the Get Over Yourself podcast, because I'm trying to get over myself and help the listeners do the same and keep advancing that theme that you don't have to attach your self-esteem to the outcome of things that you do in life. Instead, just see yourself see your life as a series of decisions and actions. It's brilliant.
That's fantastic. What a great way to end. This has been so fun. So many great tidbits of information. If you had to distill down one simple thing that somebody could take from this conversation and plug and play into their lives, what would that be?
Well, we did do some nice sound bites along the way, like, get rid of the junk food as your first step toward healthy eating. So I'm going to go with motivation's overrated, and just, put templates in place into daily life and get the work done and make, like I said, decisions and actions. So one of my favorite things that I'm put into place is my morning routine, which you referenced a little bit, and people can see that on YouTube. It's this elaborate series of flexibility, mobility, core strengthening, leg strengthening drills. And it's gotten harder and harder and longer over the years as I've cemented it into habit. But I'm not necessarily motivated to do that every single day. In fact, a lot of days I wake up and I just don't feel like it because I'm stiff from a previous workout or whatever. But I don't even allow myself the luxury of putting that into a decision-making process. I just do it because it's habit. And we all have reference points of things like brushing our teeth. Do we feel like brushing our teeth every single night? We probably don't even think about it. There's no need to motivate yourself to brush your teeth. So if you can put other things that are important to you into that category rather than, am I motivated? Do I feel like it? Boy, that can be a really powerful breakthrough in all areas of peak performance, whether it's, wanting to sit down and write a blog post on your new blog, or changing your diet and getting rid of the Ben & Jerry's out of your freezer. Yeah, you just get rid of, go past motivation and just put the template or the rule into place.
That's fantastic. Fantastic advice. Where do you want people to go to find your work?
Hey, go to bradkearns.com. You will have wild times over there and see these crazy YouTube videos. You can subscribe to my Get Over Yourself podcast and look through the various shows, the written transcripts. And I just love connecting with people, and I appreciate what you guys are doing so much. And you have the best logo in the entire podcast scene, maybe tied with the Get Over Yourself podcast. But, you're putting out great content, and it's just wonderful to connect with you. So keep it up.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. That really means a lot. And it's high praise coming from somebody like you. Somebody we've learned a lot from, somebody we've been able to share and teach other people. You've impacted a lot of lives. And for that, we're very, very grateful. I would also just encourage the listener, like these people, you, Sean, like Mark, you guys are kicking ass. You have exciting lives. You express gratitude. You're excited all the time. You have energy to do everything you want to do. There's got to be something to it. You know what I mean? Even if none of the science bears out, which it will and does, you guys lead an amazing life and an amazing example. So again, we're very, very grateful for you and for your time today.
Thanks, Casey. Great show.
This is awesome. Well, this has been another episode of Boundless Body Radio. We'll talk to you soon. As always, thank you so very much for listening to Boundless Body Radio. It's really inspiring and amazing to see some of the reviews that we have been getting, and also to receive so many messages and emails about how these episodes have improved our listeners' lives. And so thank you so very much. We are so happy to bring these episodes to you and provide them for free. And we really hope that they help you in your life. We have just passed 2 major milestones, which is absolutely mind-blowing to me. And basically, we did both of these in pretty much the exact same day. We have just passed 100,000 downloads worldwide of Boundless Body Radio, and we have just launched our 250th episode, which is absolutely amazing. Like I said, I never imagined we could reach that many people. We always want to keep you updated on things that we're doing on our website. So if you go to myboundlessbody.com, you can always see what we're up to. This month, we have a link that you can go and schedule a functional movement screen, which we do virtually over Zoom. A functional movement screen is a series of 7 different movements and 3 different clearing tests, which is designed to find weak links in the body, such as muscle imbalances and joint stability issues. It's a really great tool for discovering inefficient movement, and even if you're not experiencing pain in certain areas of your body, it's something that can prevent injury later on. Some muscles need to be stretched, some need to be strengthened, and we can help you create a plan around that so that you can stay healthy and continue to move well for the rest of your life. So again, you can go and schedule that at myboundlessbody.com. You will also see the other services that we offer. You can always schedule a complimentary 30-minute consultation with us to really chat about anything that you like. And remember, if you are enjoying Boundless Body Radio, please take a minute, give us a rating or review on Apple. It really helps get this passion project out to other people. And thank you again for tuning into Boundless Body Radio.